When Squid Game Season 3 hit screens, it gave us one of the most chilling villains in the franchise, Myung-gi, also known as Player 333. He wasn't just cruel, he was calculated. A man who seemed harmless at first, then slowly unraveled into one of the show's most dangerous characters. He didn't just betray his fellow players, he murdered them. He didn't just lie, he scammed people out of their life savings before the games even began. And in one unforgettable scene, he did the unthinkable. He tried to kill his own baby. So it's no surprise that fans asked, if this man existed in real life, how long would he spend behind bars? Could someone like Myung-gi ever be forgiven? Or would he face the full weight of the law? Today, we're putting Myung-gi on trial. We'll explore his actions, line them up with real Korean criminal law, and calculate just how long this crypto bro turned killer would rot in prison. Let's start at the beginning. Who was Myung-gi before he turned into a monster? Myung-gi, Player 333, was introduced as a relatively harmless presence in the games. He was charming, a bit snarky, and clearly desperate. We learned early on that he had been a cryptocurrency influencer, one of those social media types who promised fast profits and easy riches. But beneath the charm was a dark reality. He had scammed hundreds of people through fake crypto investment schemes and was drowning in debt. His name was dragged through the mud online. Lawsuits were piling up. He had nowhere to turn. And that's when he volunteered for the games. To make things worse, his ex-girlfriend Jun-hee, pregnant with his child, was also a contestant. At first, it seemed like he might try to reconnect or even protect her. But that illusion crumbled quickly. As the games progressed, Myung-gi began showing his true colors: manipulative, cold, and willing to kill for survival. Let's take a closer look at the crimes he committed inside the Squid Game arena. By the midpoint of the season, Myung-gi had already racked up a disturbing list of offenses. Some were financial, others were pure violence. Before the games, he operated what amounted to a Ponzi-style crypto fraud, deceiving investors with fake promises. That alone would carry real-world consequences under South Korean law. But once inside the game, things escalated. During a hide-and-seek challenge, he stabbed fellow player Thanos, one of the most beloved characters, multiple times in the bathroom. No remorse, no hesitation. He later strangled Hyunju, pushed Young-mi to her death during a group challenge, and even orchestrated the ambush of two players he had just promised to protect. But the most unforgivable act? His attempt to kill his own newborn daughter. Yes, in the final episodes, Jun-hee gives birth, and Myung-gi, fearing the baby would hold him back, attempts to smother her. He's stopped just in time by Gyeong-seok, but the intent was clear. He was ready to murder his own child to increase his odds of survival. This was no longer about the game. It was about who Myung-gi really was. And if we were to hold him accountable in a real courtroom, those actions would result in a stack of serious charges. So, what does the law say? Let's break down the main charges Myung-gi would face under South Korean criminal law. 1. Financial fraud. Crypto scams fall under the Act on the Regulation of Conducting Fundraising Business Without Permission and Criminal Act Article 347. Fraud. Large-scale fraud involving numerous victims can result in 5 to 15 years in prison, especially if restitution was never made. 2. Murder. Under Article 250, murder carries a minimum of 5 years and can lead to life imprisonment or even capital punishment in extreme cases. Since Myung-gi killed at least 3 players and attempted to kill a 4th, he would likely face multiple counts of murder, each charged separately. 3rd, attempted infanticide. Killing or attempting to kill one's own child is considered filicide and is often punished more harshly due to the betrayal of parental duty. Korean law allows for sentences of 10 years to life for this crime, even in attempted cases. 4th, attempted murder and obstruction of others' survival. Beyond actual killings, his attacks on other players and betrayals could constitute attempted murder, which carries up to 15 years in prison per count. 5. Conspiracy or group violence. In organizing ambushes and manipulating alliances, he could be charged with conspiracy to commit murder or group violence, which can add additional years to a sentence. All told, the legal system would not take his actions lightly, especially when considering who his victims were. Let's look at how the Korean courts have ruled in similar cases. In the Itaewon homicide case, a man stabbed another person in a public restroom. He received 20 years. In the Gangnam Station murder, a man killed a woman he didn't know out of misogynistic rage. He received 30 years in prison, one of the longest non-death sentences in recent years. Then there are fraud cases. In 2021, a South Korean crypto scammer who defrauded investors of over $2 million received 12 years in prison. The court cited the number of victims and lack of remorse as reasons for the lengthy term. There's also the case of Jun-hee, a 5-year-old girl killed by her father. He received a 20-year sentence for filicide, even though the murder was not premeditated. Myung-gi's case is arguably worse than any one of these. He committed multiple murders, planned some of them, tried to kill his own child, and defrauded the public before all of that. He wouldn't be tried as a troubled man. He'd be tried as a repeat, dangerous offender. So what kind of sentence are we looking at? Let's break it down by crime. Crypto fraud, 12 to 15 years. 3 counts of murder, 20 to 25 years each. Attempted murder of infant, 15 to 20 years. Conspiracy and obstruction, 5 to 10 years. If stacked, that's over 90 years. But South Korean law caps cumulative sentences at 30 years, unless a life sentence is imposed. And in this case, that's almost certain. Given the number of victims, his betrayal of a newborn, and his clear lack of remorse, the court would likely sentence Myung-gi to life in prison with no chance of parole before 20 years. And even then, parole would be unlikely. Could there be any reason for a reduced sentence? It's possible, but not convincing. Mitigating factors typically include remorse, mental illness or emotional distress, cooperation with authorities, lack of criminal history. Myung-gi might argue he was under extreme emotional pressure, but the cold, calculated way he executed his crimes would work against that argument. He didn't act out of panic. He manipulated. He planned. And he showed no genuine remorse, even when confronted with the baby he tried to kill. That said, his defense team might still try to argue mental instability, or claim that the game's psychological impact contributed to his behavior. But would it help? Not much. So, what's the final answer? In a real South Korean courtroom, Myung-gi would almost certainly be convicted on multiple charges. Murder 3 times. Attempted murder, including of a minor. Mass fraud. Conspiracy to commit murder. While he couldn't legally be sentenced to more than 30 years per the sentencing cap, the court would almost definitely issue a life sentence, with parole only possible after 20 years, and very unlikely given the scale and cruelty of his crimes. The death penalty is still legal in South Korea, but no one has been executed since 1997. Myung-gi might be eligible for it in theory, but in practice the court would likely opt for life without parole as the maximum sentence. So no matter how you cut it, Myung-gi wouldn't see the outside of a prison for a very, very long time, if ever. Myung-gi's story in Squid Game wasn't just shocking, it was terrifying. He represented the worst of what desperation, greed, and narcissism can create. But in a real-world legal system, none of that would be a free pass. He'd face justice. Harsh, relentless justice. And while redemption might be possible in fiction, in the eyes of the law, his path would end behind bars.